And so I'm trying to teach you how not to do that. So at this point is when Bitcoin super accelerates. And that point lies ahead. We're about to see that point now.
라울 팔은 전 골드만삭스 임원이자 리얼비전의 창립자이며 투자계의 전설로 불리는 인물입니다. 그는 최근 강연에서 지금 비트코인 시장이 어떤 흐름 위에 놓여 있는지 그리고 왜 지금이 역사적으로 아주 중요한 시기인지 설명했습니다. 과연 신뢰가 흔들리는 암호화폐 시장 속에서 그는 무엇을 보고 어떤 미래를 말하고 있을까요? 지금부터 함께 확인해 보시죠.
And what we see is there's periods where it decouples, and these are the banana zones. It decouples when what we get is the retail frenzy and the frenzy into the market, cools off, comes back to trend rate of this debasement of 8% or so. But over time, it produces astonishing returns. And that's why Bitcoin looks like this on the log regression channel. It's also still remarkably cheap. Where it ends up at the end of the banana zone is usually the 1 or 2 standard deviation level. We're a long way from that, and that would give us much higher prices. You can't see it on this. But if it were to get to 2 standard deviations, that would put Bitcoin at $850,000. I don't think it's going to go there, but what we're saying is there's plenty of upside to come. I know people get frustrated in sideways markets. It's just the nature of the beast. It does nothing, corrects for a while, and then explodes out of the traps. And we're kind of in that phase now that I'll talk to you about. There are only 2 assets that matter in the entire world. One is technology, and 2 is crypto. And crypto dwarfs everything else. It is the greatest performing asset in all recorded history. We've never had anything like this before. So here's Bitcoin since 2012, 130% annualized. That's including 3 gigantic drawdowns. Ethereum at 113 and Solana at 142. So, and Solana obviously starts later. So the magnitude of the returns is enormous. The volatility we have to stomach to do it is the game. And it's a matter of, I've told everybody about the don't fuck this up thesis of how to deal with volatility, how not to lose control of your tokens, because this stuff compounds over time. Bitcoin since 2012, 27.5 million % returns. Again, nothing ever has remotely come close to this. So that's the opportunity. And we said the tech stocks, they're great, and Bitcoin or crypto is great. Fantastic. Then you look at the NASDAQ versus Bitcoin, it's down 99.94%. Crypto is a super massive black hole that simply outperforms and sucks every other asset dry. This is the big one, the biggest one we've ever been given, the greatest macro opportunity of all time. We've got the central banks debasing currency, which is giving us a gigantic tailwind. They don't want the system to break, so every time something happens, they inject more liquidity. So they're giving you free money. And to take that money, you need the volatility. So what causes the volatility? Well, it's actually driven by liquidity again. Once you come to narrower time horizons, liquidity changes things. So we've just gone through a 3-month period of the market feeling shit and everyone's saying it's all over, we're never going to have alt season, everything's terrible, we're all going to die. What was actually happening was the fact that in Q4 2024, financial conditions tightened. And we measure financial conditions by the dollar, rates, interest rates, and oil. All of those went up in Q4, and there's a 3-month lag, and it drives it. So here's a simple way. We're now seeing people saying the economy's slow, shipping's slow, all of the tariff stuff. The market's priced in this tariff stuff last year once they saw the probabilities of a Trump re-election. So what we've got here is the economic surprises index of the US versus other countries in the world, i.e., when it's going down, the US is underperforming in economic surprises term. When it goes up, it outperforms. It's basically just following the dollar and rates. And what it's saying is, whatever noise we're seeing now in the economic data, which is some of the tariffs-related stuff as people have built inventories very quickly, liquidity is going to completely erase that very quickly. We saw it exactly in 2017 when Trump imposed similar tariffs, similar backdrop. The dollar and rates fell, And what we saw back then was the same collapse in the economic surprises index. We had talks about recession all over again back then. Trump's going to create a recession. Then what happened was the liquidity conditions drove all economic data higher. And when we look at that economic data, Bitcoin's already priced it in. It's already priced in, weaker than the economic data itself. So what are we fearing right now? What are people worried about? People are worried about what they're doing is creating narratives for today to explain liquidity conditions from 3 months ago. That's the ridiculousness of what goes on Twitter all day, is a lack of understanding of what actually drives these markets. What are the dominant factors? The dominant factor is financial conditions, which lead liquidity, which lead markets. And even in markets, it's gold actually follows financial conditions the closest. Then with a lag, it becomes crypto and tech. Then with a lag, becomes the S&P 500, cyclicals, commodities, all of those things.
라울팔은 말합니다. 지금 같은 변동성과 행보장을 견디는 것, 그게 이 게임의 본질이다. 많은 사람들이 최근의 하락장을 보고 공포에 빠졌지만 사실 이 하락은 이미 시장이 선반영한 결과에 불과합니다. 2024년 4분기에 금융 환경은 급격히 긴축됐고 비트코인은 그보다 먼저 이미 그 영향을 가격에 담아냈습니다. 그런데 사람들은 이제 와서 그 결과에 반응하고 있는 거죠. 하지만 그는 앞으로의 유동성 흐름은 점차 시장에 반영될 것이고 그 시점에서 비트코인은 또 한 번의 의미 있는 움직임을 보일 수 있다고 말합니다. 그가 반복해서 강조하는 건 이것입니다. 지금은 조급해질 때가 아니라 구조를 이해하고 변동성을 견뎌내야 할 때이다.
And to go back to that idea that the Trump cycle is repeating, I mean, it's an incredible repeat, but more powerful even than 2017. Those of us who were in crypto in 2017, that's when I made the mistake around this time of year, thinking, you know what, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin at 2,000. I bought it at 200 in 2013. It went to 20,000 at the end of the year, and I felt like a complete moron. And I managed to buy it back in the sell-off in COVID, and I bought it back at 6,500. So I sold it at 2,000 and bought it back at 6,500. That's how not to do things. That's called fucking it up. And so I'm trying to teach you how not to do that. So the dollar, Trump last time around, same thing. The market's priced in tariffs. The dollar screamed higher. Trump said the same thing. Everyone said the same thing. The dollar's too strong. And hey, presto, the dollar has utterly collapsed. And we haven't started yet. And it's a cyclical thing. It's not the end of the dollar. That's another narrative you read. There can't be the end of the dollar right now because 87% of world trade is in dollars and 50% of the entire world's debt are in dollars. So that's 200% of global GDP is actually in dollars. So there's a shortage of dollars globally, and that won't go away for a long time. So the dollar's collapsing. This kind of thing is a massive tailwind. As the dollar weakens, it means that the more global exports pick up. Everybody who's a foreigner who services US government debt, it's cheaper to service the debt, costs them less of their domestic currency cash flows. So it's a very powerful setup. A weak dollar is incredibly good for world growth. It allows China, everybody else to start exporting. The whole world economy starts picking up. The last time this happened, the Trump cycle, well, that was the initial correction that we got. We had this whole period of correction, much like we've had now. It stopped in about March. Well, we got to about April. And then we did this. And from that correction low, it did a 23x. Now, I don't expect Bitcoin to do a 23x because this was much earlier in its adoption curve, but some of the others will, something close to it. We've got a perfect setup, one of the best setups I've ever seen, because we know the debt has to be rolled, we know the forward-looking liquidity is coming, and we know how assets react to it. So it's like having a crystal ball. Nothing will be perfect, but directionally, it should be right. The other thing is, okay, well, with the dollar and the banking systems doing this, well, the other thing that's doing it is the central banks. China is starting to print money. China has, I think, by my measure, 3 to 4 trillion to print, but they need the weaker dollar. They need to agree the tariffs with the US. In exchange, the US will continue to weaken the dollar. They will allow the dollars into the Chinese system so they can refi all of the dollar debts. And a lot of China debts, all of the corporate debts are in dollars. So what happens is we're starting to break out, and that adds to this push of liquidity. So it's not just the weaker dollar itself, it's not just the banking system, but it's the central banks starting to pump liquidity into the system as well, because they've all got to roll the debt. And that's why it is so cyclical. Every time the total global liquidity index breaks out, again, the same thing with M2, the market goes higher. And the reason being is I talked about the correlation. Well, here's the chart. It's a 90% correlation with weekly global liquidity. That's Bitcoin. And the NASDAQ is a stunning 95%. And so it's hard to refute that this is not what is happening. It's so obvious, but most people want to refuse to believe it. They start mid-curving the whole thing, saying, well, that's not the printing of money, and this is not how it is. It's so clear in the data. It's so obvious that this has been going on. And even when you listen to Scott Bessent speak or Janet Yellen speak, they all talk about this. And so when you look at Bitcoin itself, the moment the ISM, we've had this very low period of ISM, and that was driven by this very flat dollar, and also by rates staying higher than normal. But as the ISM starts crossing 50, economic growth comes back, earnings come back, household earnings come back, stuff gets reinvested in markets. So at this point is when Bitcoin super accelerates. And that point lies ahead. We're about to see that point now. Now, we haven't shown it on this presentation, but we've also imputed how it reacts to ISM. And if we get to that 57 ISM, that puts Bitcoin at 450,000. Is it exact? Will it be exactly that? No. But all of the people who are saying it's going to 150, 250 are probably scarred from last cycle without looking at the forward-looking data. So it's incredibly positive for me. It also is what drives altcoin season. So the fabled altcoin season, everyone's like, it's never going to happen again. It's just a function of the business cycle. We happen to be the fastest horse right now. Is that a guarantee? No, it's not. But I just follow the money. I follow the liquidity flows. I follow the charts. I try and make the best asset allocation decisions I can. And the best one I can think of is we're in the banana zone. So the banana zone comes in phases. I'll show you that in a sec. But basically, in that correction, using a simple measure, RSI, we got to hilariously oversold. What normally happens afterwards, period of sideways consolidation, break higher. We've just had the sideways consolidation. This is what happens if you put all of those periods together, create an average. That looks the same as the liquidity chart. It's all the same thing, right? It's all telling you exactly the same thing, which is the banana zone is upon us. That's when the dollar had this massive move. It was a 4 standard deviation move, one of the largest, fastest moves in the dollar's history. What happens after that? Well, after the red line, number go up. People say, well, we must be near the top. What happens when we're near the top? This is everyone's fear, always. Near the top, we're nowhere near. Our cycle top indicator is a long way away from anywhere. In fact, we're at very subdued levels, much like we had in 2013 before the largest bull run of all time. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that, but I'm just saying, probabilistically speaking, things are very positive going forwards. I see no reason for any fear. Finally, the fabled banana zone chart. The construct is the same. It's not a mystery. It is a repeat of the debt cycle. They are rolling the debts. They are doing the same thing each cycle. It's not to do with a halving cycle, nothing to do with any of that. It's all driven by liquidity cycle and funding of debts. Each phase, we get phase 1 of the banana zone, banana number 1. The corrective zone, banana number 2 comes. Another correction, banana number 3. So this is the banana zone. So that's what happened in 2020, 2021. Off we go. Sorry, that was 2017, which again looks very similar to this one. That was the last one. Here we are now. It can't be clearer to me. I've shown you the macro evidence, the technical evidence, the sentiment evidence. Everything here suggests to me that hold on to your hats.
라울팔은 현재 달러가 약세 흐름에 진입하고 있으며 이는 단순한 통화 가치 하락을 넘어 전 세계 경제 순환 구조에 강력한 영향을 미치고 있는 요인이라 강조합니다. 달러가 약세를 보일 경우 수출 중심 국가들의 경쟁력이 회복되고 미국 국채를 보유한 외국 투자자들의 부채 상환 부담이 줄어들면서 글로벌 자금 흐름이 다시 활성화되는 구조가 형성됩니다. 이러한 변화는 단기적인 반등이 아니라 세계 경제 전반의 회복 시그널로 이어질 수 있으며 그 중심에 특히 비트코인과 같은 고베타 자산이 위치하게 된다는 것이 라울팔의 핵심 시각입니다. 또한 라울팔은 중국을 비롯한 주요 중앙은행들이 유동성을 다시 공급하기 시작했다는 점에 주목합니다. 이는 단순한 경기 대응책이 아니라 부채 구조를 유지하기 위한 필연적 선택이며 결과적으로 자산 가격에 강한 상승 압력으로 작용할 가능성이 크다고 분석합니다. 그는 이러한 흐름이 점차 시장에 반영될 것이라고 보고 있으며 ISM 제조업 지수가 50을 상회하게 되는 시점부터 비트코인의 움직임이 본격화될 가능성이 있다고 말합니다. 결국 그는 지금이 사이클의 초기 단계에 해당한다고 보며 이 시기를 단순한 정체기로 받아들이기보다는 다음 전환점을 준비하는 구간으로 인식해야 한다고 강조합니다. 그리고 혹시 거래 수수료 절반을 다시 환급받는 방법 아직 모르시나요? 단 5분만 투자하면 평생 수수료 돌려받는 셀퍼럴, 선택이 아닌 필수입니다. 자세한 내용은 영상 더보기란을 확인해보세요.
Don't fuck this up. Don't lose control of your tokens. Don't use leverage. Don't get your wallet hacked. Just sit with it. Be careful. Don't get FOMO. Do all of the right things, and we'll go up to the next phase of correction zone. That's going to be harder because the next one that happens, we'll have a 35% drop, and you'll all say, "Is it over?" And you'll definitely be sure it's over. And everybody on Twitter will tell you it's over, and it won't be over. By our work, we suggest that because of the elongation of the business cycle, because rates were higher for longer, the forward-looking liquidity suggests that, again, probabilistically speaking, without any guarantees, this whole thing goes into Q1, maybe Q2 of 2026, which would align with Trump's, trying to win the midterms as well. So everything's lined up for us. I think it started. So keep the faith, keep building stuff.
오늘 영상 도움이 되셨다면 구독, 좋아요 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.